name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. This fourth conference in our retreat, Loving Holiness, centered on that archetypal relationship between St. Joseph and Our Lady as spouses and as parents, taking the Holy Family as the wonderful and perfect setting into which ordinary holiness is made available, imitable to all of us. Not ordinary for Our Lady because she's the Immaculate Conception. St. Joseph is the holiest of spouses, of male spouses, of husbands, but ordinary for us because we can imitate their virtues and not be deterred because of their circumstances, which were quite average, as I explained earlier. And they are the model given us by God to grow in holiness without fear and in a gentle way, as if we were made members of the family, which we are, in fact. We are the extended relatives of the Holy Family. And earlier, I spoke of the creation of mankind, then of the fall of mankind, and just earlier this afternoon of how we prepare for matrimony, so courtship, and how we need also to put prayer at the center of our human relationships, and in the case of married people, very much so. To have, why not, in the house a little prayer corner behind a curtain, which we open when we decide to pray there as a family. I will continue in this conference on various challenges and pieces of advice for sanctity for people in the world, and especially in the family. The husband is established by God as head of the family. The husband, that's the male component in the family. And so he is the one who is the head. St. Paul explains at length that this authority is not one as of a tyrant. Not every whim of the husband is law. I spoke earlier about law being rooted in reality as created by God. But in any society, for it to persevere and prosper, there needs to be a head. And so the husband, by divine institution, is the head. He is the one who is like the bishop in the literal sense, the one who sees above for the family, looks ahead for opportunities, also for threats. The one who is in charge of the wider scope. You could say also the outside. He goes out to provide food sustenance for the family. The wife is under the authority of the husband. Now, as I say that, I know that some of us may be perhaps surprised, and certainly if any listens to this talk later on, they will think, how extreme, how intolerant, have they never heard of the emancipation of women? No, I haven't. What is it? Yes, the wife is under the authority of the husband, again by divine institution. I was reading a wonderful encyclical by Pope Pius XI's Casti Connubii, preparing for this retreat, and reading it again. In fact, a wonderful text which I invite you to read. And Pope Pius XI gives that very well-known analogy that in the body we have the head, the brains, if you want, and the heart. And so the husband is analogically like the brains, and the wife analogically like the heart. And one cannot function without the other. There is an order between both, and they are complementary. And their activity is needed for the happy life and fulfillment of the human body and of the human person, therefore. And so the human cell, which is the human family, needs a head, needs a heart. So the wife is very much within the home as the one who instills peace, harmony, kindness, and also comfort, a sense of a pleasant environment. Sometimes it may come at the cost of justice, as it may feel, when dad says, no, you will not do that. And mum knows that there are other factors involved and that perhaps little Johnny is in a bad mood or was mistreated by somebody at school or something happened. And so she will kind of temperate and bring to a more gentle approach the order. So there is always that kind of attraction between the two, not a tension, shouldn't be an opposition, of course, between the parents, but the father is the representative of the law in a more strict and sort of principled way, and the mother, the wife, is the one trying to implement it in the particular circumstances of the household, and sometimes with a knowledge of the inner life of that cell, which the father may not have, simply because ordinarily he's the one spending most of the time outside in contact with the workplace, with the other interactions, and the mum being ordinarily at home, as is preferable, especially with young children, is aware, because of her function and because of the particular nature of her soul, more attuned to these questions, she can perceive the needs of the family in a way which is more perhaps subtle and adapted to circumstances than the father does. So she can play her role as the heart and with a little silence, a little smile, a little gesture, make life perhaps easier within the family without, of course, going against the law of which the father is the main representative. Of course, the parents are equal in dignity before God, and the wife, the mother, is not the servant of the father, of the husband, neither are the children. St. Paul is also very clear that fathers and, let's say, parents should not exasperate their children when the parents really are so punctilious and or perhaps impatient or sometimes, I don't know, cruel, that they will bring the children to distancing themselves and even openly opposing the parents. Well, they are leading their children to exasperation, and they bear responsibility for the unwillingness of the child to listen further, because simply whatever good advice might have been given is mingled with so much human failure and lack of sympathy that the message simply can't be received by a young heart. So we must also take care of that. And so when we speak of authority, very much always put ourselves in the shoes of the one receiving the order and secure understanding according to his capacity and judgment. That's the child. The family unit and the house, therefore, the household, is often called a domestic church. That's a beautiful, beautiful title. That is something sacred, inherent to the family. It is a temple where God is to be praised, not in a liturgical way like we have at Holy Church for the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass or Vespers or Benediction, but certainly a sense that there is nothing purely, strictly secular in the home. It's a place where fundamentally God is the center, like the child Jesus in his cradle between Saint Joseph and Our Lady in Nazareth. God is the center. Everything must be organized around him. Remember the mission of the parents to educate their children in the faith as saints, so that they may be holy adults, die in a state of grace, and reach heaven, and there praise God Almighty forever. It means that one must not allow within the house, within the flat, within the caravan, wherever you live, something which is contrary to virtue, as simple as that. There mustn't be pictures on the walls which are ambiguous, equivocal, or even simply bad. That must not be tolerated. Now, we have a problem with the bedroom of the teenager, because we know that he likes that particular pop singer, and we're going to have a conflict if we tell him to tear down the Lady Gaga thing or whatever thing is there. So, yes, prayer is needed as usual. I am not here dictating which particular pictures should be allowed, but it's a reminder of the fact that the family home is a temple, in an analogical sense, and should be understood as such, and therefore any item which offends the sanctity of the place and contradicts its purpose of sanctification of those who dwell in it must not be tolerated. It's best, therefore, of course, to educate the children from a young age into that spirit, so that indeed when they do reach teenage, they will not even think of having Lady Gaga on the wall. They will have Our Lady instead, the real one. So what about DVDs? And well, they don't exist anymore. But if there are any, if there are any DVDs, any films which are simply not consonant with Christian perfection, well, they shouldn't be there. If it's once I was visiting a young family, and I was blessing the house, their new house, and they were on the shelf. I don't know, 20 DVDs, it was years ago, of horror films. And I said, look, I just can't bless these items, because by themselves, they are designed to bring dread, not the fear of God, but an unhealthy and ill-directed curiosity for evil. So these items, they simply are not compatible with God's blessing. And the dad immediately came to the conclusion that perhaps they shouldn't be in the house at all then. And I said, yeah, exactly. And I expect that soon after it was all not put in the bin, because somebody else could take it, but broken in 5 pieces and then put into the bin. So that's some concrete examples of how vigilant we must be in the house. On a positive light, of course, we must instead put holy pictures, holy items, holy statues. Our Lady, the Sacred Heart, the Holy Crucifix must hold pride of place in our rooms. In fact, there should be in every room, every closet, wherever you can sit, there should be at least a small crucifix, something which reminds us that no room is withdrawn from a dedication to Christ, to God, to the holy angels, etc. It's very good to have the household consecrated to the Sacred Heart, an intronization. There's a small little liturgy there. You prepare for it, and at the time appointed, the priest comes, and there is a framed Sacred Heart depiction put at a place of honor in the house, and a commitment every day of renewing that consecration to our Lord as the Sacred Heart, as a special protection for the whole family. It's a good idea to select sacred depictions which are aesthetic. You want taste, if possible. I'm not saying something costly, but don't buy like any kind of casual, a bit cheap, sugary, kitsch, whatever thing. Okay, it's more important than it sounds. The education of the soul through adequate shapes and material. If all you have around you to speak about your faith is plastic, well, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not a bad thing to invest, online to buy. Why not, all banners like this we have here? Nobody wants them anymore. So, you find them for cheap. That kind of things, why not? Have in your house and a salvage from the bin or whatever it is, but where you see a lot of care has been put in that banner with the Holy Eucharist and our Lord, and see the wheat and the chalice there and the host. And on this one on my right, St. Monica, pray for us, with St. Augustine, with his hello. Imagine the hours spent by perhaps nuns or the parish in a sewing workshop to design these things, which were the life and symbols of parishes in times gone. Whatever it is, let these depictions of holy things in the house be as much as possible something really beautiful, something with craftsmanship, or if it is mass-produced, at least something which is eloquent and does justice as much as possible to what it claims to illustrate. As an example, I was very touched just a week ago by a gift I received for my birthday, it was, by the young adults of Juventutem, and it was a depiction of the Pieta by Michelangelo, but it was not very big, the size of an A4 sheet about, but I was quite amazed by the precision of the sculpture, obviously a replica, but it wasn't in plastic, you could not see the thread or anything, and very eloquent, very fine, it's worse when we put in our houses sacred things to choose things which are beautiful. There is obviously a question of money, but I'm sure nowadays one can find for relatively cheap things which will do justice to our faith. We'll also be a witness to our children and visitors that, well, after all, yes, we do put some money in these things. Yes, we do. Because these things actually are our life. That's the most important thing. Just like I would tell the same to priests, I give retreats to clergy every year, and I would tell them the same about priestly vestments. Not to buy polyester, but to make an effort and invest some money into things which, for the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, would be worthy of the purpose. Television. Well. I've said it all now. We have a problem. We have a problem because in the evening we are a bit tired, and sometimes we don't have a lot to tell our husband or our wife, or we're a bit in a bad mood, and there's nothing like switching on, the television and just relax, sit on the sofa, be comfortable. If there is a dog, come hear the dog, and things are comfy. Yeah. Yes, up to a point. Unfortunately, it requires a lot of willpower, especially in the evening, to be able to interrupt a program, even of entertainment, even a film, where our soul tells us this is not good. And when we're a bit tired and there's somebody next to us and we don't want to look like as if we were a bit, too extreme, and it's late anyway, and surely it's not going to last more than 5 seconds. Oh, it's already 1 minute. Okay, right. Okay, so we get caught in these things, don't we? And then we lower our standards. Oh, I don't watch bad things on television, only erotic stuff. Right, okay, yes, okay. Well, I meant not really bad things, like really, really bad. Only a little bad. Only medium bad. I think there's a good test. Okay, we're watching the film, and we make space for Our Lady on the sofa. Our Lady, yeah, please sit here. And then all of a sudden, we think, actually, this is a bit embarrassing now, because what is on the screen there, I think she may not really appreciate it very much. She may really see immediately that this is contrary to our divine calling. She knows about entertainment, and I'm sure there would be in the village in Nazareth, celebrations of whatever festival and things, and she would not have been, with a sore face and just nodding with her arms crossed and no, I'm not going to be with you. No, Our Lady was gentle, fraternal, charitable, family-friendly. But she would know, as she sits by the sofa, on the sofa with us, she would know that what is displayed on the screen is not good. So what are we going to do? Our Lady, I'm really sorry, this is a mistake. Would you mind waiting in the next room? And and I'm going to need to finish this because it's only 20 minutes. I'll be back with you not long. Yeah. Okay. Are we going to say that? No, we're not. We are not. I hope not. Especially on the other side of us, on the sofa, is Saint Joseph. So. So the conclusion, I won't dwell too long on this, but the conclusion is that in 2021, television is a recurrent threat on our salvation. And so we can't really have it. We can't really have television anymore, unfortunately. I'm not saying that everybody who has a television will fall into mortal sin. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that with the lack of support for morality, even natural values in modern society, we are simply not strong enough to deal with that successfully. If we invite the world into our house, we're not strong enough. Oh, I only watch, wildlife documentaries. Well, if it is the case, and if you really can, monitor that, and if you're true to your word, I would say, well, good of you. Obviously, you are protected one way or another by God's grace. There must be good influences, whatever it is, but then that's fine. But that would be an exception. Or I only watch, very innocent fiction things, and step back, look exactly at what you call innocent. Again, what I've said earlier. The standards of the world for innocence and okay, are they really matching the standards of sanctification and of our divine calling? Is it not a risk of a constant weakening of our determination to become saints? And remember, if you only aim at avoiding mortal sin, you will fall into it. You must aim higher to avoid it. You must simply want to be the greatest saint ever, and that will always be less than what God has planned for you. It will never be too much what you wish, not at the vainglory, obviously, but to please God, to spend your eternity as close to Him as possible, which means that you want to die with the highest intensity of charity in your heart, just at the last second of awareness before your soul separates from your body. And how will you have that? Unless day in, day out, during the day, during the night, you ask God, please God, make me a saint burning with your love, with your charity. And how will you be consistent in that petition if you allow for a compromise with the standards of worldliness? Oh, the film was okay. There was no murder, no rape. Well, it's not good enough. it's not good enough? Was your soul really lifted up? I know it's tough. And in fact, I do like a good movie, I'll be frank with you. And sometimes I do watch some, okay? Now you can, online, find things, but then you select exactly what you want. You know what it is, you are in control. You watch it when you want. And you are in charge. But with television, it's sort of a routine. You're there, it's whatever time it is, eating your something, sit on the sofa, and switch on, and there you are. And you are passive, you are vulnerable, and these things, don't be fooled, are designed to keep you hooked on it. So, let's dare the word spiritual warfare. Yes, we need to be aware, and we need to make choices. I would say especially if there are minors and children in the household. Yes. For their sake, it is even more important to be very, very prudent. Now, I know well that all that I've said about television now needs to be updated or complemented by the internet. And that's another very difficult question, because as I speak, there would be adolescents, even children, who have their smartphones on and are watching pornography, sometimes on the way back from school or even at school. And that's happening on a huge scale. So what do we do? Technology has pushed us into a corner. Before the internet, all these telephone things, etc., parents were not really cornered the way they are now to making like radical choices, because they still had some control over what their children could access or could not access. When it was only the television, some years ago, and mum could say, well, the television, the TV is in that cupboard, and that is shut outside the times allocated for it for children recreation, and that was it. But now any child can watch anything whenever he wants, and that causes very, very big problems indeed. So that's something for parents or future parents to think about now. And it may well be that if we are consistent, we are led, not having really desired it, but to a conclusion which is, well, then we just can't have the internet, not absolutely in the house, but certainly not the children. And perhaps the only computer must be in the common room, so that anyone can walk in that room, so that no one feels safe watching bad material, because he can be caught red-handed at any time, he or she. I know that nowadays, when children grow up, and a lot of the teaching is they need a computer to access it, even outside of lockdown and remote teaching. So it's a very complex situation, but then it leads us to look at education more generally, and the school system, and the peers' influence on our children. It may be that we do our best to educate our children in the knowledge, fear, and love of the Lord, but that it only takes a couple of bad schoolmates to simply unsettle them, undermine our education, and wound their souls very deeply. And very sadly, if it were enough to see the word Catholic written on the door of that school to be relieved and safe and happy and confident, that would be great. We all know that it is not the case anymore. In fact, God knows in how many such Catholic schools children are actually constantly protected from such devilish influences. This is also why there has been, in the last few years, a rise of interest for alternative modes of education. some academies like the one we started in Bedford and this September in Warrington. The Regina Coeli Academy Network, which is very big in the US and starting to expand abroad, which is a Catholic way of teaching the children with real teachers. It's a bit halfway between homeschooling and full school. There is homeschooling as well, but not everybody feels equipped for it, and I admire so much these parents who, in addition to educating the children in natural life and running a household and having a job, will also be school teachers. I mean, I just couldn't do it. I don't know how they do it. They just do it because they don't see any other way for them, any other option. I don't have ready-made answers, but my role as a priest, and on this weekend about marriage, family life, etc., and sanctity, I need to say there is a big problem and we simply can't go on any longer because it's a lie, because our children are being perverted, because there are, even in Catholic schools, curriculums which have been allowed, which are simply a violation of their innocence under the guise of sexual education or understanding otherness or whatever you call it. The magisterium of the Church, all the popes have been very clear on that there are topics which belong to the parents to teach to their children, intimacy about the life, transmission of life, etc. And this is not to be delegated, even less so imposed, by the school or any authority to the parents. Please bear in mind that the parents are, by divine appointment, the primary educators of their children. So it is not the state granting you permission to teach your children. If anything, it is the other way around. It is you, parents, delegating within a certain framework and for a certain amount of time and under specific condition, delegating your authority to a third institution, let it be the state, the parish, the brownies, the whatever you want to call it, to impart some elements of education to your child. But by no means, including the state, do have any right to impose on you and on your children whatever they wish. They are auxiliaries, certainly willed by God inasmuch as they follow his holy law, and are simply assisting the parents in their God-given task and mandate. So let's call things as they are. When the growing pressure of the state in Western countries after communist China and Soviet Russia is to cancel the authority of the parents upon your children and enforce upon your little ones so-called sexual education, perversion of any kind. This is a direct violation of your rights as parents as received by you from God. Pope Pius XI, in that encyclical on marriage, Castica Nubii, told me this morning, and will tell you when you read it, the family is a more sacred society than the state. The family is a more sacred society of the state. There is a preeminence there. Yes, the family needs the state to provide a framework, to allow for social peace, and to support households, for instance, in acquiring a sizable dwelling place, which the family will own with that sense of security that it provides, will pass on to the next generation without confiscatory inheritance taxes. Yes, that's the job of the state, very much to be involved in these matters, to facilitate family life, but by no means to go against the authority of the parents following the law of God. So what? So we're in trouble, because the state is stronger than us. We are weak, we are isolated, we don't know our faith well. What I've said just now will be news to many of us here today. I know it. So we are vulnerable, we are weak, but that's why also we take time this weekend to realize these things, to speak about it, to pray about it, to read about it, to speak with our friends, with people who know, who've been there before us, and to equip ourselves to make the right choice, possibly some courageous choices, possibly some heroic choices. I was sent a video some years ago of a Christian father of family in Germany who was sent to jail because he said, my little girl is not going to go to these classes of sexual education in that school. And because in Germany it is forbidden to homeschool, that is to withdraw children from the school for private education, then he was jailed. And there was the video of the family waiting outside the prison and people praying there. And that wasn't, by the way, in case you were not sure, wasn't under Adolf Hitler and the Hitler Jugend. Okay? It was in democratic Germany some 10 years ago. Now, President Macron in France just voted, I think last week, a similar law forbidding homeschooling, or putting so many drastic conditions that, in fact, it's just the intermediary stage with full state monopoly on all education. This is happening around us. We are caught into it. We didn't ask for it. We wish it were not the case. But the beginning of salvation is to call it for what it is: an abuse, a violence, something unjust, something which displeases God and goes against your responsibility, your mandate as parents, as families, as educators. Friendships. Who is invited in the house? Well, there are the parents, they live there. The children, they live there as well. The friends of the children, that's a delicate thing, because we need our little ones to socialize, to learn, virtues in contact with their peers, in their age range. So we can't live as if we were, on a desert island. But we must also be careful. What I described horrendously that happens in the playground at schools with horrible videos, etc., may as well happen in the house when friends come with their own telephone or whatever stories. So a lot depends on who the friends are, what is the education they have received. And it's not at all judging these poor children. Very much we want to pray for them if they are subject to such horrible influences in their own houses or their own schools. But there is a cycle of priority, of precedence in the assistance we owe our neighbor. First of all, we must save our own soul, then that of our husband or wife, then that of our children, and then only after that of the friends of the children. Obviously, this is not incompatible. The more we try to be holy, the more we benefit the whole world. Anyone who comes in contact with us or people who don't know us, and we offer up our sacrifices and prayers also for them. So it is not exclusive. But in terms of allowing physical, direct influence from somebody outside the family on our children, or even on us for that matter, we need to ask ourselves, who is my friend? Who is my friend? Whom do we allow in the house? Oh yes, but he's an old friend of Dad. They were, working together for years, and long before Dad got married. And it's good to have old friends. Is the old friend, apart from having spent time together when we were younger, does he have a lifestyle? Does he have references, a conduct, leisure, and discussions and interests which are compatible with the sanctity of the home? Or that friend actually lives with a very, very, very good friend of his. They live in the same flat somewhere there. But the children, they don't need to know all that is going on, do they? And so it's fine to have the friend visit, and I won't go into details, but this leads to very serious questions. Once the children grow up and are old enough to realize what was meant by friendship there, for instance, between that visitor and somebody else outside the home, they will be led to the conclusion that their parents condoned certain things. Again, we need to be welcoming to everybody, certainly not to judge people, but we need, as educators, and for the father as head of the household, for the mother as the heart in the home, we need to know what we allow, what will foster sanctity and eternal life for our children and for us adults, and what will be contrary to it. And that gives us authority to call things as they are. Somebody who is an adulterer, he should not be welcomed in the house as if everything was okay. Somebody who is a man who lives sexually active with another man, whatever his qualities, good intentions, and whatever was a hindrance in his life, that perhaps he never was explained why this is not homosexuality conducive to a true fulfillment. We're not judging him, but we are in authority and with power to qualify the kind of influence he's going to have on our children. And even though, as one expects, he will respect them, of course, as minors in the home, when they grow up, it will be difficult for them not to think, well, it was part of the circle of friends of my parents anyway, and we spent time together, and they were great people anyway, so why be so strict, so negative, so judgmental, so exclusive? We are not that. The Church has spoken on homosexuality very clearly. In fact, not long ago, in the pontificate of Pope Francis, a document was published on that sort of issues. We love all those who, even ignorant of the law of God, try and find happiness in different ways. But we have the grace of having heard God's revelation, of having believed in it. And if we now speak on behalf of parents, of educators, we do have a responsibility to do everything within our reach to secure safety for the souls of our young children, of our teenagers, of our young adults. They are, in a way, no less vulnerable, those of 20, than the ones of 5 or 6. Perhaps they are even more vulnerable. So let us be clear with friends, what those we call friends. There might be people we see outside, people we try to help. Why not? There might be counseling for certain categories of the population who would benefit from a Christian witness. But this is another thing, different from allowing in the family circle as people trustworthy in every dimension of their lives, in the visitors into the house. The solution, the obvious one, even if it doesn't give every answer, is to privilege relationships with like-minded families. So to become friends with good Catholic families. And that's why to develop a network of relationships across the country is so important. However, even that will not be enough in the midterm. I believe that nothing will replace geographical proximity between Catholic households. It's not good enough to simply be on some family forums and exchange hints and clues and ideas and suggestions. It's not good enough. It only goes so far as the internet goes. But you need physical interaction. You need to see the person, to play, to hold hands, to eat together, to be on your knees together. and that can be done within the household, but for the children to socialize and develop into worthy and helpful citizens, you need that to be on a wider scale. So there must be a wider human group, and that is a network of families, what in the old days was called your Catholic parish. In the old days, simply you would go to the parish school and you would be taught the Catholic faith. And then you would go to the sacraments, and they would be administered in a way which eloquently expressed the sanctity and reality of the grace conveyed there. All this would conspire to provide for the child and for the whole family a network of activities covering every aspect of human life, which was sufficient to feed and build up the family. Not anymore. Parishes are shut down. It's very difficult to find a priest to hear one's confessions. And so we need nowadays to regroup. It's not a ghetto mentality. It's simply practical assessment of the situation in which it has pleased God's providence to allow us to be. We didn't choose it. We are in it. We must now be intelligent, be pragmatic, and make the decisions which will help us fulfill the beautiful calling of educators, of future saints. So we must have good books. If we watch anything, it must be something selective and not according to the standards of the world. We must, as a question was asked already this morning, we must or could invite trusted friends or relatives. Grandparents can have a very important role in the passing on of the faith to the second generation. If the parents are busy for whatever reason, and granddad, grandmom can be around and help a lot. Also at teenage, because there isn't that clash of opposition between the children and the parents, because they are the grandparents, it's a bit different. The teenager can relate to the grandparents in a way where authority is envisaged, but there is no frustration generated in the teenager, because it's not my father, it's not my mother, it's my grandfather, my grandmother. So there is something there which can be communicated, which is very useful, very deep, and certainly grandparents, and I know we have some present here this evening, they can do a lot to strengthen the family, obviously not usurping the authority of the parents. They are not, they are the grandparents, but being of great help, advice, and assistance. I need to come to a conclusion on these the practicalities of family life. Certainly an important part of it, I'm afraid, is what we wear, our clothes. Modesty is very much ignored these days. It seems there is a gang of men who steal all the dresses of women. I mean, they're all like in the street and victims of that terrible persecution. And whom to ask for help, I wonder. Sadly, even men dress sometimes in immodest fashions, in a very tight, very whatever. And this is not manly. It's not feminine for women to dress the way they do, and it's not manly for men to dress the way they do. So we need to look back at fashions which will enhance the God-given beauty of the human body, of the human shapes. This is beautiful, given by God. He loved it so much that he became a man, remember, and that he was born of a woman. So we are not at all saying that we should wear potato bags and with a little cord, unless you are a Franciscan, then it's very good. But that we should indeed look at true fashion and support true fashion that enhances the beauty of the human figure. Not long ago, in fact, I was visiting somebody, and there was a book of 1950s fashion. And I said, I looked at it, all the pictures, and I said, that's amazing. I mean, these people, there was still some kind of civilization in the way they dressed. And it wasn't at all like very posh, wealthy people. A man in the street would wear a simple suit, a jacket and trousers, and often a hat. And it didn't look ridiculous at all. It was very dignified, very manly. There was a sense of self-esteem, self-respect, and women the same, and boys as well. Something we have completely lost. And even among people who are more traditional in their faith, it is, and that would be my conclusion, the Sunday best. What is that animal, Father? Is it dangerous? Sunday best. Where do you catch it? Well, Sunday best was that love for God which led Sunday worshippers to select from their wardrobe their best clothes, to come to church, to do honor to the Lord and to their fellow Catholics. And still, in 2021, in the UK, I believe in Western fashion for a man to wear a suit with a shirt and a tie and polished shoes instead of trainers. That would be considered kind of the norm of what is formal clothes. And so that is what should be worn at Holy Mass. And for women, a nice dress, more elegant than an everyday one. Why not a nice hat? If she has a mantilla, very good, and better shoes than on a weekday. If it is winter, a nice coat, nothing ostentatious. In fact, in charity shops, when I walk by, I often see nice things which are for, I don't know, £3. So it is not at all the money put in it. It is simply, you know what? I think at the bottom, it's nothing personal, it's not an attack on anyone, but I think at the bottom, there is a lack of humility. We are afraid of being seen as making an effort for our Sunday worship because we are liberal. Oh, yeah, well, of course I go to church. Oh, it's very important for me, yeah. But, I wear my jeans, I don't shave, I have my third best T-shirt. And it's not good enough. You see, if we want to rebuild civilization for the love of God, because civilization is what helps us become holy and go to heaven, well, that's part of it. It's not good enough to come to church every Sunday. It's not good enough to have prepared your gospel. Of course, what you wear is not essential, but it's very significant as a hint about what spirit, in what dispositions of heart you go there. When you go well-dressed to the church, you are indeed advertising that this activity is more important to you than other things. People see it. They may say, oh, bigot, whatever. Never mind. And when you're in the church, people will notice, and they will be encouraged. They will be inspired, in fact. And they will then imitate you. And gradually, we reach a stage when, really, outside the church on a Sunday, everybody has made an effort. When you go to the wedding of a close relative, I hope, please God, in 2021, people still make an effort. They don't wear sport shoes, and I hope not. If it is the case, we're really fallen very low. But then, to a much greater extent, should we do the same, and even better, for Holy Mass? Dear friends, I end here, but certainly as parents, we must therefore make sure that our little ones are dressed properly in a way befitting the occasion, especially to be with the Lord.